Hey, folks, welcome back to the Kangaroo Leadership Podcast. Hey, so over the course of the last few weeks, I've had some people reach out and want to be on the podcast. And it always amazes me when, I usually say, hey, send me an email and then just schedule a time. And so these things fall in line. But there's a little prompt there that says kind of tell me what you're about. And, in the Kangaroo Leadership Podcast, what we want is we want leaders who've demonstrated that continuous moving forward because kangaroos can physically only move forward. Well, certain people pop in sometimes, and I think, wow, it's going to be a good Q&A, or let me kind of lead the conversation, or let's really dig into certain things. Today, it's going to be a little bit different. I have Alfredo with you, and I'm not going to spoil any of it. I'm going to introduce Alfredo as Alfredo, and I'm going to let him talk to you about where his life started, how he grew up, some huge successes, some major failures, and some struggles. And Dave's going to try and keep his mouth shut for as long as possible and maybe ask a question occasionally. But Alfredo, I think you have a hell of a story. It's definitely in line with the kangaroo leadership, and I'm so glad that you're here. So please start from the day you were born and work us through your story, and we'll have fun with it. So welcome.
Hi, Dave. Thank you for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to be here, and hello to everybody listening. No, good stories are the ones not the one we're seeking, but are the one that happen to us, the one we don't search for. And I never wanted, expected, sought to be an expert on positive psychology and peak performance. I was on top of the world. I came from Argentina to the States 30 years ago to study philosophy. And also, I met my wife, who was from the USA, and I follow her. And I studied philosophy, and I was ordained as a rabbi. And I did so well, became the rabbi of one of the most prestigious congregations in the United States in Westchester, New York. Some of my members were CEOs of the top companies such as Prime Media, MetLife. The other half were top of Wall Street, hedge fund managers, and the rest were lawyers at the top firms in Manhattan. Then I was kind of the rabbi to the rich and famous. I had another job with an office, as head of a program with an office in Manhattan facing Central Park. I would go every morning, put my feet on my desk with a coffee, look through the window of Central Park, and I said, Alfredo, coming from Argentina, from middle class, you made it. And you made it big. You're on top of the world. And then I never thought about being an expert on peak performance, on positivity, on positive psychology. I had it. It was obvious to me. That was my life. I didn't reflect upon it until in one morning, I would say I lost it all. And that was June 18th of 2013, around 10 a.m. in the morning. In one little town, in a little town in Westchester, I live in Westchester, the town of Mamaroneck. When I had 3 police cars behind me, and I was handcuffed. And from that point on, there are 2 lives. The life I had before that moment, and a completely new life just on a wink of an eye. And what happened? For the last 2 months, I've been driving through the highways of New York, impersonating a police officer. I had a congregant who was a retired policeman, and he called me one and said, Rabbi, I have something for you. And he gave me a badge, friends and family badge. And he said, this is better than a card, better than anything. With this badge, you will have no problems. I tell you, Dave, it looked like the real one, just smaller. And I was at that point manic. I having a manic attack, and I was wrongly medicated with an antidepressant. Then I was with a badge, manic, and taking an antidepressive, and I went full steam manic with grandiosity, trying to bring order to chaos in the world. And I began driving around and telling people how to drive, where to drive. I never touched anybody. Okay, it was all showing the badge until I showed the badge on the town of Mamaroneck to a young lady who later on I learned was the fiancée of one of the policemen in town. And it took less than 30 seconds to have the full Mamaroneck police behind me. And maybe that was a blessing, by the way. Looking back, wow, imagine without that stoppage. I was going really ready to crash. I was arrested, clearly brought to a judge, accused of impersonating a police officer, which is a felony. It doesn't matter. I didn't have a uniform. I didn't put anybody in handcuffs. I was impersonating a police officer. I have 4 cases against me. Other people began also coming out of the woods. And I was hospitalized, was suicidal. First of all, I was fired from a job immediately. I was hospitalized on a psychiatric ward. I was diagnosed bipolar at age 53. I had no clue about it. And because I was a prestigious rabbi, the press made a circus out of me, and they baptized the rabbi as the road rage rabbi. And I went viral. I knew when they gave me that name, I knew the game is over. I went viral. I was dated on front pages of newspapers from Ireland to Japan. And all the lectures and all the workshops I had scheduled, everything basically was canceled. Most people turned their back on me, and I went into the deepest depression. And for 8 months, I was on a couch, like in a fetal position, unable to move, darkness, suicidal. I mean, in complete and absolute despair, darkness all around me. Until one morning, I felt an energy that pushed me to go upstairs to my desk, to my office. Don't ask me how, why, but I felt it. And I went upstairs, and on top of the desk, I found something that until today, I am not sure how it got there. I saw a yellow file, and I opened it, and I saw the results of a test on positive psychology I had taken a few years earlier. And I took the paper, the test, and I read my 5 top strengths: creativity, love of learning, curiosity, perseverance, and bravery. And at that moment, wow, I said, Alfredo, you have forgotten who you are, your essence, yourself. Something was thrown on within me. And a month later, with depression and the 4 court cases, I went back to school. Social work school, a master's, and I went through school wonderfully, the highest grades. In fact, I was awarded at school the most prestigious award, the Inspire Award, voted by the students for the student with the best qualities of leadership and inspiration. And I realized that what happened to me through finding my top 5 strengths was a gift that others should not miss, because 70% of people in America do not know the strengths. We know this from scientific data. 70% of people are blind to the strengths. We have an epidemic of strengths blindness. which means that 70% of people are not fulfilling their purpose, are operating way below their capacities by the very fact that they do not know what they already have and what they could develop. And I dedicate now my life as a consultant, an author, and a speaker to help people uncover their strengths. I am a kind of optometrist of strengths, and every person I help to find their strengths for me is a great victory.
So, a couple questions. What were you before you got arrested? I know you were a great rabbi and you were a theologian, but what were you? If you had to have this reckoning to refine yourself, what were you at that time?
Look, I was a person, first of all, I was a person who did not know himself. It was interesting because I was manic so much, so mania. I was a high achiever. I am a lawyer. I have a PhD in philosophy. I have many certifications, and what everybody was praising me for that. My parents, my friends, how smart is Alfredo? He's one of the smartest guys I know. And I was hiding behind knowledge. My true self was hidden through the success of learning and getting degrees. Okay, and because our society cherishes so much the intellectual, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
was living under that deception that my smarts were my essence. And I never never considered that was another part of me that was really in disarray.
So, living the life you were living, I'm going to make some assumptions here. Living the life you were living and having achieved this high position as a rabbi, um, brings a lot of people into your inner circle, which can cloud this on top of it. So for you, maybe you did need this radical manic moment where you were impersonating a police officer where you had to have it all stripped away. You had to almost go back to zero for you to have a realization. But you're telling me that 70% of the people out there, 7 out of 10 people that are listening to this, really aren't aligned with their strengths. Now, I would hope that most of them wouldn't have to go to jail for impersonating a police officer to get to the point where they can get realigned. So, can you talk to that a little bit? Because sometimes people do need extremists. I do know people that probably need some extreme thing to happen in their life. And I have a personal story about that because my oldest son didn't really know where he was going in life when he was younger. And he almost got killed. He got run over at work. And he almost got killed. And I remember walking into his hospital room and I looked at him as concerned as a parent would be when you almost lose your child. And I looked at him and I said, well, I told you something needed to happen. And apparently you needed to get run over. So can you talk to that a little bit? Because I think people want to, I think some people know where they're at and they need to make the change.
My quest and mission is for people to get to the strength without having to go through crisis.
Amen.
Amen. Crisis is not necessary to get where you need to get. And by the way, that's not so easy for people to understand
Mm.
because very deep inside, we were taught the idea that suffering brings to redemption. That's a paradigm we live under. It's very ingrained in the subconscious conscious that without suffering there is no prize, without suffering there is no redemption. And that's wrong. Joy brings to redemption too. Fulfillment brings to redemption too, without the prerequisite that you have to suffer to get there. Then my job is to prevent that suffering and getting
Mm.
you to your goal with enjoyment of the process. And I tell you how. There is a way where I can help people to get their strengths in 10 minutes or less. And I want to do it now.
Sure.
Everybody now who's listening, take their phone Okay, take your phone. I give you a second, grab your phone and text the word positive to the number 33777. Okay, just take your phone, text positive to the number 33777, two threes, three sevens, and you will get from me the 24 strengths, a chart with the 24 strengths of positive psychology, because there are 24 basic strengths which are repeated throughout history and geography. And I'm going to give you three questions, simple to answer, and you're going to learn your top five strengths, which are the ones who are your essential strengths. And I will give you some exercises to apply them to life. Okay. And those who want to go deeper, I will meet within 30 minutes to discuss it with the province. Then I had created this process by which in 10 minutes you get your strengths because you have them already.
Mm-hmm.
It's just bringing to consciousness you already have, but because you don't know them, you are not applying them intentionally. And we know, and this is science, all positive psychology is scientifically based, that by knowing your strengths, your capability of success is 9 times higher.
Mm-hmm.
And by applying them 18 times higher. Then by the ignorance of strength, you're operating 9 times below your potential. Just by knowing them. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, like,
So can you and I'm going to make some assumptions here too, just for the sake of conversation. I might be right on some of it you'll correct me on. You said earlier that when you were having your your fall from grace, your arrest, that people ran away from you. Because I'm sure you had a huge, what you would call inner circle, huge network, very influential people. You kind of qualified that at the beginning. And people disappeared. Some of them probably rather quickly. There may be a few that lingered for a bit, but most of them disappeared. How is it that those people that you have around you, because I teach a lot about life team and who's on your team and who you led in certain circles, how is it that people around you can knock you off of your strengths and get you to being something that you're not or you're not good at? Almost as being an imposter. How is that? And then can you talk about that phenomenon a little bit and then talk about how people help you through this? Because I think that you have to have a team to help, it's like a football team, right? Or, even a soccer team, right? You have the number 10, you have the guy that's going to score the goals, but you have to have somebody that passes well. You have to have those type of things that help accentuate you. So,
yes. First of all, my wife did not leave me. I have a solid marriage, okay? And we're stronger and more committed than ever. My kids did not leave me either. My closest friends stay with me. You are going to know at those moments who are your true friends. That's
mhm.
basically, we know this, but it's true. I had myself in terms of loving myself through the process. Clearly, I created a professional team. I have my therapist for my weekly session. I was always in therapy like a good Argentinian. Argentina is the country with the highest percentage of psychologists per capita. It's the world capital of Freudian psychology. Then
Sure.
I've been in therapy forever, but clearly I continue going to therapy. I have my psychiatrist. Okay. I take my medication religiously every night at around 9. Then I have a time. I go to the gym every day. I sleep well and I eat well. Okay, no secrets. Everybody knows about it. You had to be disciplined. I mean, people ask me what is the number one quality that brought you through is discipline. People ask me about my faith. People ask me about a lot of things, but I think that it comes down to discipline on those basic activities that you had to do. Um, And you you need to have pleasure on rebuilding. Okay,
Sure.
you don't have it at first, but at some point you transition from what I lost to what I can build. It's not going to happen overnight. And look, I became a consultant to corporations. I became a speaker and author. Wasn't overnight, but now I am happier than I've ever been. Once I discovered my strengths, I put the team, as you mentioned, working with me. I am not bipolar. I have bipolar, which is very different. I didn't let it define myself. For the last 10 years, I haven't had any episode. I watch myself all the time. There are some things I do my wife already knows and said, hey, be careful.
Right. Right.
Okay.
That's
She's my
great.
alarm. She's my alarm. And I listen to her. I get kind of, oh, just leave me alone. But I listen. Then you had to develop pleasure on the opportunity of being able to work on yourself. Before that, things were happening to me. Now I make them happen for me. And it's more difficult, but much more satisfying, fulfilling.
So tell me where this 70 percentile resides right now and why they're there. And then let's talk a little bit about some things that people can do. Because I think sometimes people know you have these small moments where you're like, man, I'm not in the right place. I'm not doing the right thing. I don't have any pleasure. I do a lot of coaching. And that's, I've had kind of this transition to getting away from doing things I'm not strong at and staying with my strengths. And I'm an activator. I can get in front of people and coach them through really tough things, make them successful. And I've been great at that. But there's times where you hear people say out loud, "I'm just not happy," and it's like they're trying to put their finger on it, and they can't do it, and they can't figure it out. And to your point, I think some of it is that they have fear of walking away from where they're at because there's a comfort level there. And once you get them through that fear, and you can get them to take a couple steps, I think that the weights change. There's good weight on your shoulders, and there's bad weight on your shoulders, and shifting that. So can you talk to that a little bit, because I think people are closer than they know to making a move.
I am a firm believer on the airplane analogy, which says that, for an airplane to take off, it takes usually 10 seconds on the runway. And those 10 seconds, the plane has to use more energy and fuel than during flying. Then those 10 seconds define the journey of the plane. And if you can get over that initial extra strength you need, then you're going to soar through the air. And I think most people fail on those 10 seconds. Okay, yesterday I was going to go to the gym, it was raining here in New York, and I had a 10-second moment of doubt. I'd rather stay and watch Netflix.
Sure.
Okay. And then it took only to grab my bag and sit on my car. And then all that doubt and hesitation was immediately gone.
Sure.
Okay. And then I was satisfied that I did what I wanted to do. Then, first of all, people need to control the 10 seconds. Most of life is decided on the 10 seconds takeoff. And if you take control of the 10-second takeoff, then life soars with much less energy than those 10 seconds. And we know those 10 seconds, by the way. We all know them.
Sure.
Okay. Then that point number one. Control your takeoff and get momentum. Okay. Strength will help you with that. Okay, then when I was broken, and I learned that my top five strengths were love of learning, curiosity, and creativity. Those are the top three. Then I naturally began looking to do something that aligned with the strengths, and that's why I went back to get a degree in something that was essential at this point in my life because social worker has been my biggest allies. They saved me, literally. Okay, then I said, I want to be like those people. But I had an alignment between the path I chose as a career at that point and my strengths. That makes things easier. People go against their strengths because they had the wrong objectives. They put objectives first and strengths second, and his strengths first and objectives second.
Can you three dimensionalize that for the people that are listening? Do you do that with a piece of paper? Do you do that with help? Do we need to talk to
Yes, I
you?
mean, you mean an exercise for it?
Yeah, yeah, because
Well,
people are going to go, well, when I find out my strengths, how do I align what I'm doing with how do I reverse that? Because
then there are different things you can do. One thing that I recommend people is when you learn your top five strengths, then you take each one of the strengths. Let's say strengths number one, and you say tomorrow Monday I will wake up in the morning and I'm going to apply that strength this day. Okay, let's suppose that one of the strengths is forgiveness. Number one, let's say. Then Monday I'm going to forgive somebody. Okay. Let's say that number two is leadership, which is one of them. Then Tuesday, I am going to exercise leadership at the team at work. And I'm going to focus on my best leadership I have, qualities I have. Then you take your top five strengths and apply each one of them
boy,
intentionally. One day of the week, we know that you are going to begin shaping your life with energy according to them and finding your way. Then it begins first with the application of the strengths.
right?
The other exercise that's a little bit more complex, but it's amazing, is you take your iPhone or Android, whatever you have, and you put an alarm to sound, let's say, 4 times a day. And each time you stop, you ask yourself which strengths I used the half an hour before, and you write it down. And you do it for 5 days, Dave. And at the end of 5 days, you're going to have a map of life strengths, and you're going to see a pattern. Okay, I've done this with hundreds of people. They all are amazed. Wow, I didn't know that I was using creativity every day, or I was using humor every day in this way. And you get control over it. You bring it to full potential. It's happening without consciousness. It becomes now obvious and intentional, and it propels you into 9 times more results and potentially 18 times more results and aligns you. You begin thinking
Mm.
more about how then my use of strengths aligns with my objectives.
So, so you're making the statement that once you utilize your strengths in this manner, your objectives will change.
Yes. You see, like I said before, we begin in the wrong place. We begin what are my objectives and then what I need to get there. And the question is about being and then having, and not having and then being.
So talk to me from the perspective of the 30 something that just got their first manager job and they want to be CEO of the company one day. Because there's your 70% right there.
Yes. Then what I do with them, because I work with people like that,
Yeah.
then the first thing we do a full diagnosis. Then we do a real instrument on strengths. We use the VIA, the Values in Action instrument. We
Mm-hmm.
use the deep version that gives you a real assessment of what your strengths are in detail. Okay, and the person gets to know exactly how to use the strength and how they can shine. Because you're going to shine and get to see, you're going to get to CEO by maximizing your strengths. That was going to get you to CEO. Whatever those strengths are, I don't care what your five top strengths are, because they're different from each person. What I do know is that you're going to get to the next position by the application and maximizing what you're good at, not by fixing what you're weak at.
Or trying to get into places that you're weak and either fake it or do a mediocre job.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people get stuck there. They're like, they've got me doing this and I can't do this and I'm not good at it. Well, then stop. Stop.
Top any top five strengths you have will get you to where you want to get if you maximize them and use them according to the context. Okay. Now, clearly, I am not good on my top five strengths, maybe to be a captain of a nuclear submarine. Okay.
Right.
But, within a company, all the 24 strengths shine in the right, using them wisely. Then the first thing I do is a comprehensive and deep assessment of what your strengths are, because your strengths are going to bring you anywhere you want. The second thing I do, I give them the Myers-Briggs, which is
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
personality, to see what is their style.
Right.
And the third thing I do, which is a new thing, it just came out 3, 4 months ago. I give them the latest and only instrument on purpose called the purpose factor. The purpose factor is going to determine how you fulfill yourself according to purpose.
Hmm.
There are only now around 100 people certified on purpose factor. I am one of them. And then there is a formula I came to, which I time and again I had seen it working, which is the following: positivity plus purpose equals peak performance. Positivity plus purpose equals peak performance.
I like
If I
that.
work with
Hmm.
you on finding your positivity through your strengths,
Right.
and we determine your purpose, you are going to arrive to peak performance not through fixing, not through going against, but going riding already your potential
Sure.
will get you to see or get you somewhere. Okay.
Sure.
At the end of the day, there are a lot of candidates for CEO, then,
Sure.
but it's going to get you ahead. Okay. And if all circumstances are right, you are going to achieve peak performance, and that peak performance is going to get you. See, we are working under the paradigm of fixing instead of nourishing. Fixing instead of nourishing. Our parents were trying to fix us since we were born, okay, with love and care, okay. I'm going to tell you how to do things better.
Right.
I remember my parents, when I was in high school, they went to Argentina to the parents teacher conference, and they will come back and they would say to me, Alfredo, you did great except for math. And then your teachers will give you grades, and everybody's going to focus on what you are doing badly, poorly at.
Sure.
And then at work, your manager is going to give you a performance review to improve something. They have it all, they're all wrong. What we are meant to do is to maximize what people are good at. That's what positive psychology teaches us.
Hmm.
We get at the same amount of energy, we get more fulfillment and results, but maximizing what it works than perfecting what is broken.
Professional athletic teams that are high performing championship teams, they put players in places that maximize their strengths.
Exactly.
And they don't. If you're not good at something, they don't expose you to that.
But we don't do it. They know that at sport, but they don't know that at companies. Okay, they don't do that at companies. I see that every company I go, they still working under the paradigm of the manager exercises power by focusing on telling you what you're not doing right. And peak performance is about the opposite. It's
Right.
positivity plus purpose equal peak performance.
Right, which is activation, right? Because
Exactly.
if you use the positive piece of that, that activates. It gets people on the runway. It gets them to do their 10 seconds. So no, I get
Exactly.
it. So tell us, Alfredo. Tell us how we get a hold of you. Tell us about your book. Tell us about all the things that people want to know, and so that we can put that out there because this can
Look,
build
I
relationships for
tell
you.
you what the book I am writing. Okay, it's not there yet, but I am writing a book about the AI technological revolution. You know, this is the first revolution where people feel that technology is infringing into what makes them human. See, all of the revolutions competed against us in doing things. Machines were going to do it faster. Even when we lost, even with Kasparov lost against Deep Blue in 1997 on
Right.
the chess match,
Yeah.
okay, we said a computer can do computations faster than we do.
Right.
Now you can tell a program, an I want you to write a poem for my wife in the style of Pablo Neruda, and you feed the biography, and in 10 seconds you have poetry written.
Yeah. World class poetry.
Or, for my anniversary, I want for my husband who likes country music a song for him based on his love for dogs with the symphonic orchestra, and you have it in 10 seconds. Then the new technology is infringing in what we consider to be humanity, creativity and ingenuity. It's a new ball game. And then what is going to happen is that the human is going to become a high commodity, a luxury. Actually, it's going to be paradoxical.
Right. Right.
But humans are always going to come on top. Because AI is going to open a world of opportunities and improvement and creativity. Okay, that's my take.
Right.
And we are going to stand on the shoulders of AI and be health and creativity is going to explode. Then the companies that retain the human and develop the human as this goes through are going to come out at the end of the process stronger than the ones who stop investing in the human.
Sure. I
Okay.
agree. It's just there has to be a marriage of the two things and not a separation. You can't let one thing separate the other.
And what is going to happen is that some people, it's going to be a transition, and there's going to be a lot of people who are going to lose their jobs until
Sure.
there no. But what's going to happen is that we know from research that people who survive the transition and stay at companies, they have survival remorse. We were working under the assumption that those who remain feel proud and lucky, and they are the elite. And we know from studies the opposite.
It's interesting you're doing that because nothing is novel, Alfredo. The strongest union in the United States of America at the turn of the 20th century, in the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, the strongest union was the elevator operator union
Hmm.
because elevators were so complex that when you got in it, the operator had to know how to close the door, how to close the latch, how to call the floor up, how to run it, and how to get all that open and get you out. That was a job. And it was the strongest union ever. And then somebody said, I'm going to make a button and anybody can push the button. And in a matter of a short amount of time, about 10 years, not only was the union dissolved, but the job was completely gone.
But then you had people who were expert at repairing the new
That's
elevators.
and that is how people have got to look at this is I didn't lose my job. It's what's my next. Because a lot of people that ended up repairing elevators were the ones that operated them.
Right. Then
So,
then there is there then the question is which companies understand that and they bet on the human as the ultimate result of the revolution, and
right,
which one buys some, and these ones are exiling the human from there. From then that's what I'm writing, and then I'm writing how companies can bring positivity, emotions, and strength into the equation, and how we know from science today that empathy, no, hope, optimism are today gratitude proven by science
right.
to increase performance.
Yeah,
In other words, you don't have to be good, and you don't only have to be good at companies because good is good.
right.
You have to be good at companies because good is productive.
I, and that's why, that's why I said, kind of talk to the people that want to be the CEO because they need to know what to expect from their organization. Because if the organization doesn't create the environment, it makes it more difficult.
Yeah, but we have the science, Dave. That's the difference. We always, we can instinctively think that to be good brings the good in people, and to bring the good in people bring productivity and the best in them. But today we had the measurements and the studies to say
Yeah,
this is not just good intentions.
right.
And CEOs want to know the science behind it
Sure,
because because behind they want to be good, I imagine,
sure.
but they feel that sometimes goodness gets in the way of performance. And what we can show today is that goodness increase performance. That's what I'm doing now. In terms of getting in touch with me, I think again, just text positive to three three seven
Yeah,
seven seven
yeah,
seven. I have there also a calendar.
sure,
Okay, and those who want to talk, I will be glad. Those who want to discover the purpose and to go deeper into the via to discover the top strengths. That's something I am. It's a mission I am committed to do. I am. It saved my life, and it's a pity that people go through life without knowing the strengths.
I love it. All from the road rage rabbi.
I went through different stages. Then at some point, I transformed the road rage rabbi into the bipolar rabbi. And I went by the bipolar rabbi for a while.
Sure,
Um, Now, when I go to companies, clearly I don't use rabbi anymore. My work today is not it's more on helping people in general.
sure,
I don't mix religion with this. I am a peak performance
sure.
coach, consultant. But of the 24 strengths of positive psychology, one is spirituality.
Yeah, it sure is. It
Okay.
absolutely
Then
is.
then and another one is the appreciation of excellence and beauty,
Yeah,
which is also connected with spiritual dimension. I don't care what you believe. That's your prerogative, but you're a spiritual being.
yes,
That's part of who you are.
yes. Yeah, it's amazing. So this comes to the time, Alfredo, that I like to give you just a blast out there to just give some quick words of wisdom, maybe a one-liner takeaway for everybody to kind of reflect on as we go, as we all go get our phones and text 33777 positive, and again start a relationship with you. So
Look, the question of questions that people do not talk about openly, but I think is in most people's mind is if at the end or at some point in my journey, I'm going to look back and be able to say I gave it 100%. There is no more painful life than a wasted life. And that's at least, Dave, is the question I fear most, but also the one that makes me most excited that at some point I'm going to look back and say, I gave it 100%. Any wherever I got to,
hmm
but it was through my giving of all, and you cannot do that without a positive attitude and
sure,
having your top five strengths in your pocket. You
sure,
just can't. Okay. You will not get there without having them. You have them already, just unlock them. Easy.
Well, folks, a lot of times we're looking for a one-stop shop. And I'm not going to say Alfredo's a one-stop shop because they're hard to find. But when he talks about this positive thing, it reflects on my journey with MaxFab Consulting and what Maximum Fabulous means about having your attitude and the type of attitude, because we control that every day. And so what a heck of a story. What a heck of a place for you to land. What an opportunity for everybody out there to rediscover their strengths. Some of them you already know, but to rediscover your strengths and then to learn how to get back on the road to using those to be happy. So, how's that for a summation? Because happy people do tremendous things, and even things that look hard to us. If you look at the people doing them, a lot of people will say, "No, I totally enjoy it," even if it's cleaning bathrooms. And so that's what we do. Alfredo, I can't thank you enough for being here. Um, if you've got any last words for us, let us know. And if not, you're definitely a kangaroo leader, and we appreciate having you.
I am living, Dave. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. But I am living always, when I do a podcast or do a talk, with the aspiration that there is at least one person who's going to discover his or her strengths, and that, or their strengths, and that for me is a fulfilled day.
I love it. I love it. Whoever's listening out there, be that person. Small text. We all love to text. We do a lot of it. Send the text. Get the relationship with Alfredo and just get better. So, sir, thank you so much. Out from here, you all be blessed. We'll talk to you on the next episode of the Kangaroo Leadership Podcast.